All right, as we broadcast, as we podcast, don't call it the broadcast booth. It is a broadcast loft here at Cardinals Camp 2024. Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation. Paulie Podcast, Dani, Sureck, Darren, Urban. I'm reminded of the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not covet an opponent's training camp. Meaning, where's the controversy? Where's the drama? Where is the friction? You know, we haven't had anything sensational or salacious.
Haven't even really had any news. Like, you don't even have any injuries or roster moves even.
No roster moves.
Which is amazing for a weekend.
No contract holdouts. Not even a bad attitude to be seen or heard. No one making the walk of shame after a fight. No fisticuffs. In fact, I threw out a story idea that was rejected, although I might still pursue it in a way. You ready for this one? In the absence of controversy, maybe thou shalt create a little bit, and I was going to go after a self-made story, if you will. What is the deal with the number 12? Then maybe I could pit Blake Gillikin against Zay Jones, and they just go around in the number 12. This team isn't big enough for two number 12s, Dani. And so maybe, just maybe, I'd get these guys to kind of play along, tongue-in-cheek, and have some fun with the whole number 12 battle.
Yeah, I wouldn't really worry about that, because as soon as one of these 15 receivers is cut, I have a feeling Zay Jones is going to change his number, Paul. So
I see. So you're saying it's
all that work for nothing.
You're saying it's Blake Gillikin's number. And Zay Jones is just renting. Is that what you're saying?
I'm pretty sure. Am I making this up? Didn't someone ask Jones, and he said earlier that was just the number he gave him? It didn't really have meaning to him to begin with?
I'll be honest. I have not heard that. But,
maybe
Gillikin had it first.
Somebody did say they're flat out of 80 numbers, any other number that you could assign to a receiver. Hence, that's why Zay Jones did get number 12. So, okay.
Now, I'll have to check on that, because I think those are numbers that the receivers want. If you're a receiver, I'm pretty sure you can wear a 30 or a 40. Now, I'm not saying Zay Jones would be okay with that in the short term, but I would agree with Dani that eventually there's going to be some numbers there for the taking.
By the way, what you just said is foreshadowing to later when we will unveil, Dani Sureck.
Oh, here we go.
The Paulie Pigskin Breakout Players of Camp. ... Not even finalists. We're just going to name names. The offensive and defensive breakout player at camp. Envelope, please.
Before we get there,
happen.
I have to say, between that and John Gaines' resolutions here, I feel like we've accomplished a lot in this first week of camp.
Is there anything more eye-opening than John Gaines, Dani, running first team in some of the 11 on 11? Do tell.
Well, he started out last week limited, and then Gannon said a little less limited this week. What's been interesting was I haven't seen a lot of snaps at center the way his rookie preseason ended last year before his injury. It's been a lot more work at guard, both sides, which has been good. It's been interesting to see. It's just good to see him out there. I know everyone's very happy for me that he's been out there. So.
How do you feel about being connected with the John Gaines storyline?
Why would I feel anything other than great?
That's a great point. That's a good point. We actually need you a little bit too, because I like John Gaines. He's a super nice kid, but he literally will say nothing. I feel like somebody gave him the book of cliches, and that's all he will say. He does it very nicely, but I feel like we need Dani to interpret what's going on, because I don't think we're going to get anything out of John Gaines.
So, all right, once again, we need storylines here.
Yes.
Is that still the biggest position battle in this camp? Would it be left guard? Would it be QB 2? Would it be cornerback 2? How would you give me your power poll, Darren, right here, right now, putting you on the spot, the top position battles as we stand after the first day of pads?
I think because of the unknown, I feel like left guard still seems pretty open. But and I don't know how many people are involved in it, but I do think cornerback 2 remains. Max Melton's been getting a lot more run at cornerback 2 than he was doing in the off season, which I don't know if it surprises me. Actually, it shouldn't surprise me. But Starling Thomas is still in that mix. He clearly, and then he had a pick on the first day of pads. it doesn't feel like he's going anywhere right now. So those two are the two that come up. I mean, I'm sure QB2 is something, but let's face it, for the fan base, who's starting at cornerback and who's starting at left guard is going to rank over who might play if something happens, that God forbid something happens to Kyler.
Same with RB2. I
Yeah.
think that I'd put that like same boat kind of I think left guard and cornerback is still higher ranked than that. I mean, it's still important to know who's going to be your backup quarterback or, RB2, but I don't think that's highest ranked right now.
I will say Amari DiMercato has gotten a lot more first-team reps than I anticipated.
I said that myself to somebody on the sideline, actually, is like, Amari DiMercato has gotten a lot more run than I thought he was going to. And when you look at all the things he can do, which is be steady on special teams, he's obviously very intelligent. I don't think, no offense to Amari, he's not a next-level speed guy or even power guy, but he's got enough of both. He's a really good pass blocker.
Ding.
And so those are the kinds of things that, running back is a great example of, like, when we were talking about it, and Jonathan Gannon's talked about it at one point as we've been going in about when we're talking about these position battles, you're talking about more than just that position. The guy, if you're an Amari DiMercato and you're trying to be, let's, for example, say he's trying to be the fourth running back, you're also battling against a fourth or fifth cornerback or whatever, maybe an outside linebacker or another safety because of the special teams implications. So that's been very interesting to me. I'm running back. I'm really curious of what happens. Is Michael Carter absolutely your RB3?
If you would have asked me a week ago, I would have said yes, and I don't think I would say yes right now.
I mean,
for all the reasons you just said.
I'm with you on that.
What are you asking from your third down running back? You're asking for pass protection first and foremost, right? So when you mentioned the pass pro ability of Amari DiMercato, that's what got him in the game last year. That's what got him a game day jersey and had James Carr on the sidelines taking a blow because Amari DiMercato could be trusted protecting the franchise quarterback. Can we say that about Trey Benson right now? Are you ever going to be able to say that about Michael Carter, considering his stature and weight? Probably not. So I know I'm guilty of it. I just figured Amari DiMercato was on the outside looking in that running back room and maybe had a long road to hoe considering some of the talent ahead of him. But wait a minute, that's not what Drew Petzing and Jonathan Gannon might value at the back end of that room.
Well, and again, Michael Carter does bring you something that I don't know. I mean, you could maybe Trey Benson, but he brings you something that you don't have, which is really explosive speed. And so here's something that we haven't talked about, and we haven't mentioned DJ Dallas, who we think has been mostly brought in for special teams, but again, is Amari DiMercato and him battling because of that, or are they both could they both be worthy enough? Is there any chance there's 5 running backs on this team, and you're keeping one guy as a Jeff Rodgers special team special?
Maybe, but when you think about the idea of the identity of this defense and how many positions they like to have a constant rotation of, I don't know that the numbers lend themselves to having 5 running backs.
I would probably agree with you. And that's, again, this is where this is all going to be really fascinating in terms of how this ends up playing out.
Well, think about it. If, for example, the Paulie Pigskin breakout player at camp on offense is also a return man, well, that's what DJ Dallas brings to this roster.
DJ Dallas is your breakout player?
No, I'm saying that DJ Dallas could be replaced.
That was misleading.
Could be replaced by the breakout player of camp if he's also a return man. We'll get to that a little bit later.
I have a gut feeling, I think.
We'll get to that a little bit later.
Actually, I've got like a 99% gut feeling if I know Paul Calvisi for anything.
Does a breakout player have to be a rookie?
No, but it is.
The breakout player has to be way off the radar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it can't be Trey Benson, all right, just because he's a rookie. No, it has to be way off the radar, like nobody's thinking of this person.
How have you not picked up on this?
A few years ago, over a decade ago.
That would assume I'm paying attention.
We hit it out of the park with Tony Jefferson, once upon a time, undrafted rookie out of Oklahoma. And then the very next year was Deron Brown, undrafted out of Clemson. Now, we had a bit of a drought ever since. So we maybe we started smelling ourselves a little bit, didn't put in the work. So you know what? With no further ado.
Yeah, let's do
Okay,
this.
here we go. The envelope, which doesn't work well on this mic. Anyway,
It's going to look great on video, by the
I'm
way.
going to show you just so when I say I was right.
we are
you
talking
believe
about
me.
a guy who, at his pro day, wasn't at the combine. Pro day ran a 4.47. He had a vertical of 37 inches. 4 years at the University of South Florida. Final year for Dion at Colorado. Led the Buffs last year with 68 catches, over 900 receiving yards. Xavier Weaver would be your offensive breakout player at camp. Reaction?
I was right.
You're picking a guy that's your size. I don't know why.
Well, at least weight. I don't know about size, but
How tall is
we'll go
he?
with weight. They list him at 6 foot is where they
Okay.
list him on this.
Okay.
6 foot even and 169. So is where they
Nice.
list Xavier Weaver. But if you watch some of his highlights, and there are highlights all over YouTube, little bit of Anquan Bolden in that he's got this head and shoulder sort of fake. He'll give it to you and pull it back, and he's making dudes miss in the open field, and I can see why he was a really effective return man in college.
Anquan Bolden probably didn't weigh 169 after he was like 12.
Yeah, that's sort of the Evan Brown. He was racing cars until he was age 14, and then he was way too heavy. All right, so that's the offense. On defense, we're going to call this year's pair of Paulie Pigskin breakout players at camp 2X. Xavier Weaver, Xavier Thomas. That's who I'm going with.
Okay.
Xavier, who I liked enough, only got 2 reps. These guys only get 2 reps in the O-line, D-line drills, right? We wait all year. As I told Craig Grillo, they need to close like the post offices and banks when they finally get into full pads. It should be a state holiday. And then you're all amped up and they get 2 reps. But at least he looked really athletic.
Kyle Vanderbosch I was watching the first O-line, D-line head-to-heads in pads with him.
KVB is a good guy to stand next to.
And when it was over, he's like, "There's so many guys out there. You don't get enough reps." He goes, "Once I remember we get like 12 reps in one of those." I'm like, "Yeah, no." Although I did find it was interesting, and I don't think I've ever seen this from a Cardinals team. They didn't do it last year. They were doing 2 and 3 reps at a time. The same people. Did you notice that?
Did notice that? Yep.
That's new.
For example, Darius Robbins had a great first rep and then got stymied in the second rep. It was more of a bull rush the second rep, and he sort of got off balance, and that didn't go well for him.
Vanderbosch was saying that he liked it because as a defensive player, you could actually set up a guy, which you never can do if it's just one. But if you see what happens, maybe you can set him up. And I guess you could do it as an offensive blocker too. But I thought that was interesting. That's always where we really kick off camp, is when the pads come on and then you do that first offensive and defensive line the deal. That's I'm like, okay, we're finally at football after a long time.
And this just in, I wasn't a 3-time Pro Bowl edge rusher like KVB, but I will say I thought Zaven Collins looked quick. He looked quicker than maybe I've ever seen him. I'll just say that. That was an impression I had. Roy Lopez got under Hjalte Froholdt. Now, Froholdt did hold his ground, but that was a titanic battle. I thought that was pretty good. Darius Robinson's first rep, man, he got out of his stance in a hurry, and he had a good pass rush, I thought. Just running it through my mind, Justin Jones, I thought, was really powerful coming off the ball. In fact, I would say after the first day of pads, and you can agree or disagree, Danny, and I know you will, the D-line defeated the O-line between the individuals and the team session, and I don't think we ever said that a year ago. L.J. Collier looked really good, I thought, in his couple of reps. All told, I would say D-line defeated O-line.
I would agree. I think that's even been before pads have come on. And I know when you have the pads on, that changes everything. But I think I was saying next to you, Darren, at one point in practice late last week of saying Zaven has looked quick. There were multiple instances. You're not obviously sacking your quarterback at training camp, but there were instances where it would have been a sack for Dennis Gardeck, but Zaven Collins has looked fast around the edge, and then seeing it in pads is still a good sign. I agree when you started seeing, the teamwork of, first team versus offense versus first team on defense, the D-line did consistently look threatening in the sense that like they weren't getting run over by the offensive line. They were still hitting their marks. They were still getting in the backfield. So I think that it's a good sign. I think that's probably a large reason as to why also the secondary looked as good as it did first day in pads.
Garrett Williams had a good day yesterday.
Yes.
Good day.
Including a pass breakup in the red zone right at the goal line against Greg Dortch, which is no small task. Those two going against each other, the whole iron sharpens iron thing, that's a great camp battle. Those two consistently matching up against each other in the slot.
And Garrett Williams has been outside a lot more than I expected. We really haven't seen him outside, and there more times than not, if this defense only has two cornerbacks out there, it's been Williams that's one of your outside corners.
That is something that I noticed was when they go – now, granted, we expect them to have 3 corners on the field most of the time with the way the league is. But when they only have 2 corners, it's been Sean Murphy-Bunting and Garrett Williams most of the time.
Interesting. I did not notice that, actually. That's really interesting because honestly, I run through my mind. I haven't – notice that many snaps where they've gone with just 2 corners.
Well, again, those are going to be inevitably run-down type situations. So there's part of that. But he's the one out there. It's not like he's coming off the field.
Well, look, there's no bigger friend for a defensive back than getting a pass rush, right, and that front 7 being stout. And I bring that up because it was have you heard of the analytics Twitter account, Warren Sharp Football?
Yes.
So it was right before camp. He put out the best and worst defensive lines in the league. Guess who ranked 32nd? Guess who might want to print that out and put it on the old bulletin board down in the locker room? The Arizona Cardinals, according to Warren Sharp and his analytics, and ranked the Cardinals lowest in the league along the defensive line.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't know enough about all the other defensive lines to really be able to compare. And if you're on the outside looking in, who are you seeing on this defensive line? You're like, yeah, that's the guy who's going to put him over the top. You know, I'm going to say on one hand, and I'm going to be doing a story on this on azcardinals.com sooner rather than later, I think adding guys like Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones, I mean, they have absolutely upgraded this defensive line. And I think when you look at it, and we watched it, as we're just saying, in the first pad of practice, you can tell. That said, if you're on the outside, like if I'm talking about, I don't know, the Panthers, and I saw this list of names and I didn't know anything about them, I'm not thinking much of them.
Well, not only that, none of these starters were here last year. This isn't a situation where you kept most of your starting D-line and you're plugging in 1 or 2 veterans. This is really a whole new line. L.J. Collier played 1 game. Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols are new. I mean,
Ray Lopez came in.
It was late last year that he was really starting to play.
We were aware. I mean, he didn't start playing because he was
same with
when
Dante
they brought him
Stills.
in. I mean, it's understandable.
I get it. There's not a lot of name recognition. Period.
Well, you're trying to stir the pot, Paul.
I'm trying to motivate these guys that.
By the way, I told Blake Gillikin about the Andrew thing this week.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay. And what sort? I didn't quite have the guts to do that. He's been pretty locked in on the sideline. What sort of reaction did you get?
Well, I was interviewing him for a story, so it was the end.
Okay.
Well, I led into it exactly the way I led into our conversation last week, which was it was an article about guys who are under the radar but could be all pro. They have you on that list. Oh, that's pretty good. Now, the only problem was they called you Andrew Gillikin.
Completely forgot about this.
And he looked at me and he's like, I don't know any Andrew Gillikins. I'm like, yeah, well.
They do.
Did you get the sense that he would play along if we did something with the number 12? Did you get that sense? Is he?
I'm not. When we start talking about players and their numbers, that's a really.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't we learn a little something about B.J. Ojolari and Marvin Harrison Jr. A little bit?
Yeah.
Like, that's a dangerous road to hoe.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right. Well, look, there's that. Okay, the whole defensive line. L.J. Collier, I think, is a great point. Like, nobody has any idea, a former first-round pick. That
right, if you're going to base it off Seattle.
Right. You know, and to hear him tell it, and he told it, no holds barred last year at this time, that system was a bad fit for him. And so he's much more on board with the sort of scheme that J.G. and Nick Rollis are running. And he looked good last year in August, looked good for the first game, and then we all know what happened. So that's the sort of thing that could happen out of nowhere. I do wonder, maybe I'm the only one down there. When I look at the defense, they say, okay, when final cuts are made, are they looking for a veteran corner? Are they looking to see if a veteran left guard is available? Are they, and this might go to the top of the power poll in terms of needs right now, are they in the market for quarterback 2?
That to me seems most likely. I don't know that you're going to go and spend big money on a veteran cornerback when you've put so much capital into that position with the younger players you've drafted over the last 2 years and bringing in Sean Murphy Bunting. I think that's very intentional and planned of when you're spending that money early in free agency of what you're expecting and what you're wanting to do around this time. Now, anything can happen. There are still some veteran cornerbacks out there. It's just a matter of will they fit this scheme and the cost for them. I think when you're looking, and it's early, it's been the first day, only had 1 day in pads so far. I can't sit here and confidently say that one of your 2 quarterbacks fighting for that backup spot has really shined or, outperformed the other. So you hope that's a position that you would never need, right? The money would be worth it because if you do need a backup quarterback, as we learned last year, that is an important position to make sure you have trust in. I can't see them spending money to bring in a big name cornerback at this point.
Here's how I look at it. First of all, has this team signed late a veteran cornerback since Tremont Williams that actually did anything?
Who was the guy who went to Green Bay? Rasul Douglas?
Yeah. Well, but
that was mid-season, though. But I'm saying they're out there and they can make a difference.
I'm not talking about a team. I'm talking about this team.
Right. Remember
this team.
Wasn't it Rasul Douglas they signed 3 years ago and then he went to Green Bay?
Rasul Douglas was on the practice squad, never played for this team in a game, and then they signed it. And then the Cardinals were elevating somebody else, and I'm trying to remember who it was. They were elevating another cornerback off the practice squad to play, or they brought him up to the roster, and then Rasul Douglas signed with the Packers. So I'm talking about a guy that the Cardinals signed, a veteran guy that you're putting on the 53-man roster, whether it's Drake Kirkpatrick or, there's been a couple other guys. None of them have is it really worth for what you're getting? Is it really better than what you might have in a rookie? I don't see that happening. I could be wrong, but I think where they are as a team, I think they prefer to let one of the younger guys come out and take some lumps. Why would you – we already said Garrett Williams is playing well. Sean Murphy Bunting's going to be out there. So you're going to bring in a veteran over Max Melton? That makes no sense to me. He's a second-round pick. None.
And he's out there getting reps for a reason right now.
Maybe a left guard, maybe, but I don't think so, especially when you just spend a third-round pick on a guy. I think this group and this front office would rather take their lumps with the young guys and see what they do rather than spend something on a guy who's a guy, but he happens to have played. I think that's where this team is right now.
Yeah. And that said, I'd probably rate it in terms of need or likelihood. I'd say QB2, number 1, left guard, number 2, veteran corner, number 3. And I agree. They do have enough numbers and enough talent at corner, especially Garrett Williams if he's going outside. Heck, Rabbit could be a third safety who could actually play a slot corner. We'll see how that goes eventually.
Do you think they sign a QB2, though?
Let me put it this way. Going into this camp, I thought Desmond Ridder, definitely it was his job to lose.
Okay.
And if nothing else, they could get Clayton Tune easily, I think, to the practice squad.
Yeah.
And the fact that Desmond Ridder is making less than $2 million a year over each of the next 2 seasons. But if Ridder doesn't play better and be more effective,
I'm not disagreeing
I'm putting
with
myself into the mindset of Monty Ossenford and wondering if indeed you are in the market, sort of like he made a really hard decision after the Minnesota joint practices last year with Colt McCoy.
Well, to me, that's apples and oranges because Colt McCoy wasn't healthy, which even Colt acknowledged later. And you had to have a starter because it wasn't going to be Clayton Tune. In this case,
it wasn't Kyler Murray.
And it wasn't Kyler Murray at that point. I'm thinking to myself, who do you get? I'm sorry, but who do you get that's better than what they have right now? And I'm not saying Ritter's playing great. I would agree with you. I think he needs to level up, and I'm not sure Tune is there. But I don't know who's out there. And also, unless you do that very soon,
It's a lot to have to
Yeah,
learn.
how the hell are you going to have them be ready?
Well, here's my follow-up.
With all due respect, they got their starting quarterback after camp last year. He had no camp practices, no preseason action, and he was starting 8 days later in Josh Dobbs. So, and this is just for the backup spot. So if you did it last year, I think the likelihood of you doing it this year
That's a fair point.
is much greater, especially since he's QB2.
Here's my follow-up question. When it's been Evan Brown getting first-team reps as your left guard, what are you not seeing there that is so high on your list to bring in a veteran? Or just because it's a new person in a spot?
And I don't know yet. We'll see how it grades out when we get into the preseason games and especially the joint practices. I'm just wondering if it's on the radar. And if you're scanning other teams' releases towards the end of this camp, and then also the fact that you have $35 million in cap space, you do have the ability to spend on extra players. I'm just saying it's on the radar. I'm not.
I would agree with you. It's on the. I don't. They're not going to close the door on anything. I mean, one of the things that I think is we talk about under the radar. I think one of the things that's under the radar is this team is still going to have the third waiver choice up until the first month of the season. So no matter where they are right now, they're up there in terms of if there's someone interesting who gets cut, they're going to have a good shot at them if they so choose. So would I be surprised if they got one or two waiver claims? I would not. Quarterback, I don't see a quarterback that you could see as your number 2 being released. It would have to be somebody's on the street right now to say this is worth it to me, and I don't know who's on the street right now.
Yeah. And I'll admit I don't have my pro personnel board in front of me with everyone's backups, or
See,
the
that's
other
the problem
31 teams.
when you start putting this stuff on video, because if we were just audio still, you could say you did, even if you didn't.
You're right.
Except we'd call you out for it. So.
That's true. That's also
So
true.
we've gone long enough without talking QB1. Kyler Murray met the media.
Yes.
Takes and takeaways. What sort of impressions did you have after Kyler was done meeting the media for the first time during camp?
Obviously, the big one to me, newsy-wise, was how he acknowledged that he was not the same dual threat guy at the end of last year, and now he is, and that is going to change the equation.
In fact, here's the quote. He said, "I don't feel like I've even scratched the surface of what I'm capable of as far as moving around and being a dual threat." Hello.
Yeah.
And I would imagine he didn't say that, but I think interpreting that of people thinking, oh, well, think about the first couple years. He was running around and using his legs, but think to what Kyler said this offseason where he doesn't want to have to rely on that. He wants that to be more of the natural reaction and extending a play. So I think the way he wants to use his legs and in a way that really benefits the offense as a whole is not something he's really had from the previous regime, and then didn't really have the ability last year as he was coming off an ACL injury.
The funny thing is Drew Petzing, I asked Drew Petzing if, as coaches, once they saw him in gameplay, even though they had seen video and everything, once they saw him in gameplay, were there things that are like, oh, okay, we didn't really realize, hey, I wasn't familiar with your game, the meme. And I asked Petzing for an example, and he said the under center,
QB run game, QB keeper,
yeah,
yep.
all that stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, like you pair that with what Kyler just said, and you start thinking, okay, like maybe we are going to see a lot more of that stuff.
I also felt like he seemed very comfortable and confident, not just in himself, but in the offense in a way that felt different. I think that's because maybe this team is significantly younger as opposed to having a lot of veterans, a very veteran-heavy, older team, and now it's a much younger group, and I think Kyler relates to them a little better, at least on a personal level, and stepping up into that leadership role, but really, honing in on the sense of urgency. He said that quite a few times, that there is a sense of urgency this year for him.
I did think about that, and it was good, although I bet you if we go back, I bet you he said that same quote every year. Yeah, there's a sense of urgency to win. I bet you he said that every year. But anyways,
right.
I find it interesting about the part where he did mention the older players on the roster when he first came in. Sorry, Fitz. But anyways, is it possible that, there aren't as many older players, but also you're older, dude. Like you're now what is he 26?
27 at this point,
Is he
right?
Well, I think he's
27?
turning
Almost.
27 in like a week.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So he's about to turn 27. Yeah.
Right. More,
You're going to
older.
feel
You're
going
more
to feel a
mature.
little bit more comfortable because half the team is like 22 and 23. So like yeah. So
All the draft picks told the media, "Oh yeah, I grew up playing with Kyler on Madden."
Yeah.
Or I watched his high school and college highlights
So-
growing up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get that he feels more comfortable, but I kind of want to say, hey, pump the brakes. You've just gotten older, and now you're acting like they did when you came in.
Yes, to a certain extent. Also, earlier in the offseason, he was saying this is the best he has felt big picture-wise since his Heisman winning season. That's kind of what it's
Yeah.
all encompassing.
Well-
It's not just like the personal aspect of, okay, you're older, the players are younger, you probably relate to them
Well-
more. It's big picture.
I agree, big picture, because there's so many things that go into it. A, he's been through a catastrophic injury and came through it. That tends to change your perspective. He's 6 years. He's now in his sixth season. You get it now. You're older and more mature. You have a coaching staff that you really, really like. You have a front office that you really, really trust.
He's
That-
gotten paid, which also
He's
shows the
gotten
trust
paid.
in him.
What would you have given me if I would have said in his press conference yesterday, Paul, hey, do you feel like you're underpaid, Kyler?
Seen Jordan Love contract.
Going full circle to how I started this. That's the controversy we need. That's the controversy we covet right now.
No, we do not covet that.
I mean, honestly, we need something
there was
salacious
there
and
was a
sensational,
tweet that came up yesterday.
even if it's concocted.
Yesterday was the anniversary of the Cardinals taking out the homework clause. That was the most uncomfortable week and a half of all time.
That's good. But you know what? You
So much so
you
that I'm
just-
not even going to comment on it.
No, once again, I'm telling myself, thou shalt not covet other training camps. You just bullet pointed as verification what Kyler said, which basically proves everything we said in the offseason, correct? One, he values football more than ever. Did he not say that? You never know when it can be taken away. So the season-ending injury in the 2022 season did recalibrate him. Anybody in any line of work, anything you value, you appreciate it more what? After you lose it.
Sure.
And he is all ball. As he said, he's been playing ball since he was 4 years old.
Wasn't
football
that a song,
and
Omo?
baseball. A
Who sang
country
that?
song?
No, it wasn't a country song. I feel like it was a hair metal band.
I'm going to ignore that, and I'm going to keep going. The
gonna think
locker
about
room. Did we not cite that finally this is his team? Because you don't have Larry Fitzgerald and J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins. All these all-pros who are, established leaders. Well, he's the unquestioned leader. Number 3, Albert Breer had a line in there, an interview with Jonathan Gannon, Sports Illustrated. He came out, took a shot at our weather, by the way. It was only 106, and he did the old blow dryer joke when you walk outside the stadium. And he had Jonathan Gannon telling him that, yes, he tasked Kyler with trying to generate more of that buy-in from the other guys on the team. And what did Kyler do this offseason? All you have to do is listen to the Pash Pod and Michael Wilson breaking down everything Kyler did for all the guys on offense all offseason long. So everything we speculated about, Kyler pretty much confirmed during that press conference. It is the new and improved Kyler, especially
Yes.
from a leadership aspect. And then the last thing you mentioned, Danny, and I do agree, is no longer is this an offense where Kyler, hey, here's the football, you go create. So to draw a basketball analogy, remember when James Harden said, I am the offense?
Yes.
And he's just ball dominant. Everything goes off me. Kyler doesn't want that. And that's not an effective way to win in the NFL because it's too easy to game plan against. But if you give Kyler a top 5 run game and you give him weapons a receiver didn't have last year, and now he has at least 2 big-time, if not 3, tight end receiving threats, and you fix that left guard liability, now all of a sudden Kyler is Kyler when he needs to be, when it's organic, when it's 3rd and 10 against Atlanta, and he gives 20 yards and then runs 30 to pick up the first down.
Again, I think a big part of it is the comfort with these coaches, what they're doing with them. Like Drew Petzing was saying, hey, even when he got here, I wanted to make sure I had a good relationship with him, and I think that was achieved fairly quickly. And I think with what they accomplished, I think there was a lot that Kyler believed in these coaches, seeing what was happening when he wasn't playing and what they were able to do with Josh Dobbs. Obviously, they weren't winning games, but they did do some things, especially rushing the ball.
Yep.
And that goes back to what you were saying, which was, wait a minute, if we can run the ball, that's less on me.
And some of the biggest plays that Josh Dobbs made were with his legs.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times the sideline reacted when Josh Dobbs took off. Like, whoa, this dude can run. Like
The pastronaut, the run-a-not.
What would you guys have done if I would have asked Drew Petzing, excuse me, Mr. Offensive Coordinator, the number is 4. We need a minimum of 4 tight end screens per game, 2 to Trey McBride and 2 to Tip Ryman. And we're going to call the Tip Ryman tight end screen, who wants some? Okay, it's just the Gronk effect. Just throw it to Tip Ryman, give him a couple blockers, and then we'll see which DBs want a piece of the 274.6-pound Tip Ryman, according to his tight end coach on the Red Sea Report. He weighed in at 274.6. He's a very detail-oriented young man, Tip Ryman. And then we'll
how
see.
About Ben Steele? Ben Steele seems pretty detailed if he knows that off the top of his head.
Yes, he does. So, by the way, he made mention to Tip Ryman as a standout body fat percentage. So, if you want to do some investigative reporting, somebody needs to ask Tip Ryman at 274.6. What is your body fat?
Why don't you have much love for Elijah Higgins?
You know, as a screen guy, I think I have him more as a receiving tight end. I'm just saying in the screen game.
Okay.
All right.
Fair.
Just the girth of Tip Ryman, and then we've seen Trey McBride's ability to run the ball. Right. He doesn't go down in first contact.
Right.
And/or he makes the first guy miss. So anyway, once again, I'm gonna have one of those egg timers like Vin Scully had in the broadcast booth. Until it would remind him when to say the score during a baseball game. I'm just gonna put a big egg timer down in the Gatorade bucket on the sideline, and when it runs out, that'll signal Drew Petzing, "Thou shalt call another tight end screen."
It's going to be hard for Marvin Harrison to get 100 catches if you're throwing a bunch of tight end screens.
Okay, true or false? Marvin Harrison Jr. has had a quiet camp.
False. False.
Quiet? Why? Because he's a quiet person? I think he's looked great in camp.
No,
I'm not saying
I
he
think
hasn't
he's
looked
been-
great. I'm just saying, like, there hasn't been that viral one-handed catch. He hasn't really gotten more targets than anybody else,
Oh,
per
Well, he
yeah.
hasn't
se.
gotten more targets, but
I don't care.
everybody notices when he has.
He's fluid the way he moves. He was
See, I
wide
feel like
open.
he's trying to get the controversy going when there's
he was,
no controversy.
He was
there.
wide open on a play yesterday that I was watching it, and I was thinking
That was
in
7-on-7, right?
in a game that would have been a touchdown. And then obviously he's not running full speed after once he catches it because, they're not going to go full contact against his DBs. But I was thinking, okay, that would have been a touchdown. I think that he has looked fast. I think he's looked competitive. Everything that was advertised about him is what he's looked
Okay,
like. Even if he's not having a crazy one-handed catch the way that Zay Jones did late last week.
Here's a conspiracy theory for you, Paul, because I know
we go.
you traffic in these.
I got my pen out.
What if they're just not doing as much with him while it's open practices because they know everybody's recording it?
I
That
like
sounds
it.
incredibly
I like
likely
that.
with this
I like
coaching
that.
staff.
It goes
I like
back to
that.
the 2003 training camp where we're all like, why isn't Anquan Bolden getting any playing time in these preseason games? And Jerry Sullivan's like, don't worry. You're gonna see it when it happens. He had like 2 catches in the
Right.
preseason, second-round pick, and you're like, the second-round pick? Isn't the second-round pick supposed to be? I know.
I don't.
Just you wait.
See,
I
Danny,
think it's fair that Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't even going to dress for a single preseason game.
you don't think he will?
If he doesn't, then Kyler doesn't. You don't think Kyler does either?
I don't know. I know that when we've asked the coaching staff and they've said that's an ongoing discussion, for some reason I feel like it wouldn't surprise me if they don't.
I would be stunned if a rookie, even Marvin Harrison, didn't play at least a little in the preseason. I wouldn't feel comfortable.
We're still a ways away from that, so maybe
We're not that far away.
the thought will change, but a lot can happen in 2 weeks of camp.
Have you ever heard of the band Cinderella, Paul?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, they specialized in spandex.
Well, they sing "Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone." That was the song that was in my head.
There you go. Okay, that's good.
If we didn't have a ban
Yeah.
on popular music, I'd
Yeah.
make sure that Omo put it at the end of the podcast.
Darren, don't distract from the fact you just agreed with me. You came in a roundabout way. You agreed that Marvin Harrison Jr. is indeed having a quiet camp, except your theory is it's by design. So I have that written down here. That's good. I'm going to hold you to that. We'll see. Or maybe Max Melton and Sean Murphy-Bunting are playing some pretty good corners, so he's not getting as many targets as we might have thought coming into camp.
Wait, you said you wanted to sign a veteran cornerback because they all stunk.
By the way, speaking of DBs, as I ignore that, because it's a pretty good point, I don't have an immediate response. Buda Baker did say on Arizona Sports that he's tagging off on Marvin Harrison Jr. Thou shalt not hit Marvin Harrison Jr. He joked, I'll hit Zay Jones, but I'm not hitting Marvin Harrison Jr.
Smart man.
So that was pretty good by Buda Baker. But I will say this, because I've asked myself this. Is the reason maybe why there hasn't been that viral moment with Marvin Harrison Jr. is he's one of those people that makes everything look so easy. Those who do it best in any profession just make it look easy.
That's like Danny.
The lead guitarist for Cinderella. He's probably a savant. He makes, playing guitar look easy when it isn't. Marvin Harrison Jr. he's so fluid. It looks effortless, and he catches the ball so easily. I did a dramatic reenactment, an audio reenactment for Wolf on air the other day. I said, here's
That's
Marvin Harrison Jr. catching the football. Ready? There it is. He just caught it. You never hear it. It's like Larry Fitzgerald asked. He just catches it so easy. I joked with Wolf, how many career receptions? And he said 26. They can't take 26 career receptions away from you. I said, well, every one of those 26, the guys in the upper deck at Sun Devil Stadium could hear you catching the football. That was the difference between a fullback catching it and wide receiver one.
So are you saying that if Marvin Harrison made a one-handed viral catch that everything changes? I'm trying to see.
I'm just saying it's been a little quiet so far. That's all I'm saying.
And also,
I'm not saying he's a different player because of one or the other.
If you happen to video that one-handed viral catch on the same phone that you apparently filmed Larry Fitzgerald in 2008.
Okay. That's a pretty good rip job. That's a Fitz caliber rip job right there. It really is. I'll take that one. I'll own it. I've been a little busy during camp, but
understand.
First off day, yes, I am heading over to the cell phone store, and we're going to try and do that.
We're going to have Kramer put that on social.
Yeah. Speaking of I don't know, product placement, if you will, Danny, what you're drinking reminds
Water?
me of Hjalte Froholdt. Is that like, are you taking like best practices from the Cardinals starting center and getting your requisite protein?
I was having a conversation with my very good friend, Kyle Daroni, in our video department.
Joe Burrow?
And no, he bleached his hair before Joe Burrow.
Well, we don't know that.
We do. I saw him.
Well, yeah, but we don't know when Joe Burrow bleached his hair. We just know when he showed up at camp.
See, this is the controversy we need right here. All right, even though.
Okay. Anyway.
Go ahead.
And I was talking to Kyle, and I said, I cannot believe that Hjalte downed 2 of these protein shakes in a 6-minute press conference when each one has 40 grams of protein. And I said to Kyle, 80 grams of protein just sounds like so much. And he looks at me, he was like, Danny, you need to be having more than 80 grams of protein in a day. So Hjalte needs to be having like 3 or 4 times that. So that night when we were at the hotel, ran into Hjalte in the like makeshift cafeteria, and Kyle and I were joking with him about that. And Hjalte was so serious, and he was like, Danny, you need to be having more protein. And he was saying there are studies where with different groups, one group is in a calorie deficit and the other is not. The only difference is the other group is having 40 more grams of protein a day, and they lost more fat and gained more muscle. And I was like, 40 grams of protein, that's just one of these shakes. But here's the best part is the next day I had one of these, and I kid you not, I was full for like 6 or 7 hours. And I said that to Hjalte, and he laughed. He was like, I mean, that's a good amount of protein you should be having in a day, so that makes sense. And I was like, yeah, but you had 2 of those. And he looks at me, he goes, Danny, I'm literally 3 times the size of you. Like, it makes sense. And I was like, okay.
I'm like, my first thought is like, wait a minute, like, Danny weighs like 98
I was going to say, don't say Danny weighs on a podcast and then say a number afterwards.
My bad. But
what you need to do is get in the squat rack or maybe the deadlift. Now that video will go viral.
Here's the problem with that.
She wants to carry around stones is what she
Here's the problem.
That'd be good.
That might be the next step, because one of our like physical therapists who like I'm friendly with, I've run into him like at the hotel gym, which is, I love the Wigwam, so I'm not going to say anything about their gym. And he was saying to me, he's like, how's your workouts been? I was like, oh, I've been really lazy. I'm just using it to kind of move my body in the morning. I'm not really like doing a hard workout. He goes, okay, you'll work out with me in the morning. And I was like, that actually sounds pretty terrible. And he was like, no, I'll put you through a workout. And I was like,
Oh, yeah, you will.
okay.
Yeah, that'll
Because
get
when I see this trainer in the morning at like 9 or 9:30, that's his second workout of the day.
No.
Yes, he's lifting at like 5 in the morning at a different gym. He told me, he's like, yeah, that's just my cardio time. And I was like, oh boy. So stay tuned for that. I'll probably need 2 of these protein shakes to get through that day.
There you go. That got extremely real, Danny. You learn your lesson there. Don't talk workouts with some of the training staff of an NFL team.
She's got her protein. She's got her blanket on.
I know. Now I'm getting a little warm. Well, the thing is in the past, this booth has been freezing because we've had to close. Like the wall is up right now, but we've had to close it because typically the field is coming in and out, so it's really cold in here. But right now,
the field's coming in. You can't
hear
it.
Yeah, it's only so early. So now that that's open, it's a little warmer.
Hey, the bottom line is this podcast was built long before you were in high school. Well, maybe not, but this podcast was built on the open window and trash cans getting emptied outside the window while we were recording, so this is nothing.
That's right. We learned the hard way to check the trash collection schedule of Flagstaff Municipal before we started doing podcasts back in the day. You're absolutely right. Okay, any other takeaways, any camp postcards, anything else, any other rants and or standout players that need to be identified?
I can see where you're coming from with your breakout players, Paul. However, will there be an admission of fault if they don't come through?
What is the end goal? To make the final 53?
Well, ultimately, yes, but to make noise in the preseason in the month of August, ideally in the games they come in, they ball out. There's Xavier Thomas off the edge, and he gets to the quarterback. Xavier Weaver, once again, 2X. We're going with these guys. Make big plays and end up in the highlights, and they start getting the attention of the coaches. Because remember, Tony Jefferson, Jerron Brown, these are guys who came out of nowhere, made the final 53. They took someone's spot.
That's my thought with Xavier Weaver is what JG said about you're not just competing in your position group, you're competing against everyone else in their position group. And I just think when you're looking at the other receivers and it being a numbers game, when you've got someone like Greg Dortch who can return, you've got someone like DJ Dallas who can return, we've seen Michael Wilson doing a few returns, that to me is what would make it hard for Weaver to make this team. Is I think it's hard to make it just on special teams when the rest of your position room is already going to be filled. So that to me would say maybe more practice squad, and then you'd be elevated when it's necessary. So we'll see.
So if your top 4 receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Zay Jones.
I think you have room for one more.
Yes. Who is the clubhouse leader for wide receiver 5 right now? Who's the final wide receiver based on 1 week of camp?
I think Chris Moore makes a good argument for his special teams abilities.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a fair battle with Zach Pascal, and that was his major role last year.
By the way, I love Chris Moore. He shared with us that his mom wouldn't let him play baseball growing up. I said, baseball? Usually moms don't let their kids play football. He said, no, baseball, because it was too boring. She didn't want to have to sit through all the youth league and little league baseball games.
I respect that.
As a parent who lives in Arizona, I'm not going to lie, when my youngest son moved from baseball to basketball was the best day of my life. I mean, I love basketball, don't get me wrong, but man, when it's summer, well, you're a baseball parent. You know what that's about.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. There was an All-Star Little League tournament. It was 1:18 at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Oof.
And what I love about Little League is they won't start the game till the fence is closed completely in the dugout. Like, it can't be open 3 millimeters or the ump will stop the game for safety reasons. But we'll run a 12-year-old out in catching equipment when it's $1.18 to catch a doubleheader. Jim Omohundro knows that very well from experience. And honestly, like after 3 innings, we're changing catchers. Our second-string catcher is awful. But look at him, right? We got to get that kid out of the game and get him hydrated.
Dang.
Yeah.
They need to have, misters they have around like the restaurants out here. They just need to have those.
That's a good idea, actually.
Not a bad idea.
Or maybe misters around the bill of their baseball camp. That'd be, or the hat. I mean, the cap. Boom, just right there.
You guys need to get the trademark.
So instead of losing the ball in the lights, you lose the ball in the mist. That would be the excuse for.
I know you're a big Cinderella fan, Paul. I can just see it.
Couldn't stand Cinderella, Whitesnake, Queensryche. I just couldn't take them.
My dad didn't like Whitesnake.
The instead of the hair bands, that's
Brian
why.
mention.
That's
You got
why
a Brian mention.
I was a big. So ask your dad if he was it. Well, of course he is. He's from Texas. Your dad's a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. That's why I was a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan back in the day. I couldn't stand the hair bands. In fact, the best day was when the grunge movement happened. And
Well, I love the
those
hair
guys
bands
out.
back in the day,
Yeah,
so
okay, all right.
whatever.
That'll do it for this edition of Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation here from Cardinals Camp 2024.